Einen wunderschönen guten Tag zu unserem Themenspecial heute zu dem Zukunftsmarkt Vietnam und zwar speziell dem Arzneimittelmarkt. Hier zu der Thematik, die uns alle gerade wahrscheinlich beschäftigt, nämlich die Lieferketten zu sichern und die Logistik zu bewältigen. Mein Name ist Kirsten Gries. Ich vertrete heute die Exportinitiative Gesundheitswirtschaft, bin dort stellvertretende Leiterin und führe Sie hier kurz noch am Anfang ein. Und zwar vor allem möchte ich Ihnen Herrn Hung Le vorstellen, der den heutigen Vortrag übernimmt. Herr Le ist unsere Kontaktperson in Ho Chi Minh Stadt seit 2019. Er wurde dort speziell vom Bundesministerium für Wirtschaft und Klimaschutz eingesetzt, um in diesem sehr speziellen Markt sie nochmal ganz individuell zu unterstützen. Einerseits natürlich klassisch auch mit Marktinformationen zu Medizintechnik, aber auch zur Pharmaindustrie, aber auch indem er auf den entsprechenden Fachmessen ist, für Sie auch tatsächlich individuell Kontakte recherchiert, aber auch ganz einfache Anfragen beantwortet. Sie können über uns, die Exportinitiative, die Kontaktinformationen erhalten oder auch einfach bei der AHK in Ho Chi Minh Stadt auf der Website nachschauen. Da müsste Herr Le auch vertreten sein als Ansprechpartner. Herr Le, vielleicht noch ganz kurz, spricht Deutsch. Er hat 6 Jahre in Deutschland studiert, BWL. Und ja, sich in den letzten 4 Jahren auch sehr stark in die Gesundheitswirtschaft Vietnams eingearbeitet. Stichwort Gesundheitswirtschaft. Als Exportinitiative Gesundheitswirtschaft gibt es meine Geschäftsstelle seit 2011. Wir wurden tatsächlich auch vom BMWK eingesetzt, um noch mehr ganz speziell ihre Bedürfnisse im Auslandsgeschäft besser zu bedienen, vor allem den Informationsbedarf. Also wir versuchen Ihnen wirklich zu allen wichtigen Märkten die Marktzugangsbedingungen, aber auch Bedingungen für die Geschäftsaktivitäten vor Ort zur Verfügung zu stellen auf unserer Webseite, aber auch in Webinaren und Themen-Specials wie heute. Wir unterstützen Sie bei der Vermarktung im Ausland. Ich habe die Auslandsmessen schon erwähnt, aber auch mit Imagematerialien und damit natürlich auch bei der Vernetzung mit Partnern im Ausland. Und wir versuchen natürlich auch immer, wenn wir im Ausland sind, aber auch natürlich durch unsere Position sowieso in Kontakt sind mit ausländischen Entscheidungsträgern, darauf hinzuwirken, dass die Rahmenbedingungen sich auch in ihrem Interesse dort positiv verändern. Sie finden unsere Informationen auf unserer Seite und natürlich auch auf gtai.de und der Vietnam Landingpage. Und jetzt übergebe ich an Herrn Le. Herr Le wird auf Englisch heute zu Ihnen sprechen. Ich wünsche Ihnen ein spannendes Themenspecial.
Vielen Dank, Kirsten. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Hung Le. I'm the contact person here in Vietnam, and I'm very pleased to make a presentation about the supply chain and logistics in Vietnam in such an uncertain environment. This presentation will be divided into 3 parts. I will start with the update of the COVID-19 situation in Vietnam. And secondly, I will give you an overview of the Vietnamese economy and the pharmaceutical industry. And finally, the issue of how to deal with the supply chain and logistics in Vietnam in such an uncertain environment will be discussed. So I will start with the update of the COVID-19 situation in Vietnam. In the first quarter of 2022, the number of new cases has increased significantly, dominating by the Omicron variant. And up to now, around 10% of the Vietnamese population has been infected. And since 80% of the Vietnamese population are fully vaccinated, many restriction measures have been lifted, and most of the activities now come back to normal. In the second part of this presentation, I will provide you with the overview of the Vietnamese macroeconomics and pharmaceutical industry. The main macroeconomic indicators are GDP, CPI, FDI, trade balance, while the trend of the pharmaceutical industry will be reflected through pharmaceutical imports, local pharmaceutical production, and pharmaceutical market. In the second quarter of 2022, the GDP growth accelerated to over 7.72%, which is the highest figure since 2011 due to the benefits from the economic reopening and recovery. In the first 6 months of the year, the GDP increased for 6.42% compared to the same period last year. With the current positive and potential growth rate, with Vietnam will strive to gain a GDP growth rate of 7%, 0.5% higher than the target set by the government and the National Assembly. On average, in the first 6 months of 2022, CPI increased by 2.44% in comparison with the 1.47% in the same period last year. The continuous rise in the domestic gasoline prices and the world fuel prices, together with the rise in the price of essential consumer goods and services, raw material, and transportation costs are the major rationales for the increase in the CPI in this period. As of late June 2022, the total newly registered capital adjusted and contributed capital to buy shares by contributed capital of foreign investors reached $14 billion, almost over 90% over the same period in 2021. However, the realized capital of foreign investment projects is estimated at $10 billion, up by 9% compared to the same period last year. During the first 6 months of 2022, the trade balance recorded a surplus of $700 million. And now I will give you an overview of the pharmaceutical industry. The demand for pharmaceutical products will continue to increase. In the first quarter of 2022, the total pharmaceutical revenues of Vietnam was estimated to increase by 7% over the same period in 2021, of which the pharmacy channel increased by 23% and hospital channel decreased by 5%. With the $1.7 billion, the pharmaceutical imports in the year-to-date second quarter of 2022 has shown a slight increase while comparing with that of the same period last year. In the period, China is the largest pharmaceutical supplier, followed by India and England. With all above positive signals, the patients have been encouraged to visit hospital for health check, and it has led to the increase in both inpatient and outpatient segments since March 2022. And now I will switch to the last part of my presentation, and it is all about the question how to deal with the supply chain and logistics in Vietnam, in the pharmaceutical industry in Vietnam, in a global uncertain environment. In the course of my work, I had a chance to talk to some VIP in the pharmaceutical industry, which run a really big pharmaceutical companies, and I have summarized some of the key points or the main tasks and to figure out how they can overcome such a tough situation. In general, the major pharmaceutical industry companies in Vietnam have focused on two factors: the physical factors and management factors, in order to overcome the pandemic period. Concerning the physical factors, they had to appoint the key position of an organization. It means that they have to reorganize their company for such a specific time, and then they had to rearrange all the materials and goods. So in order to, because sometime at that time the Vietnamese government has imposed some restriction and lockdown in order to decrease the new cases, and that reason why they had to rebuild their logistics infrastructure, because in a normal time, for example, all the vehicles and warehouses can run in ideally condition, but now just sometimes only 30% of the vehicles were allowed to run on the road. So they had to rearrange their fleet again, and also they had to invest a lot in the IT system, because in the pandemic period, due to the lockdown, many people had to stay home and work from home. So that's why the IT system had to be rebuilt in order to effort on the remote working condition. The second important factor is all about management. And in terms of management, the pharmaceutical company, had to wrap a so-called business continuity plan. So they had to figure out all the main tasks in order to survive every single day. Normally, when we talk about a strategy, we talk about a 3, 5, 10 years period of time. But now they had to survive every single day. So they have to specify on in a really detailed way on the tasks they have to do every day. And they had a meeting every day in order to discuss about what they will do tomorrow, the day after tomorrow. And also, when they reach to an agreement, the so-called policy, they have to communicate with all the staff in order so that everybody understand this policy, and so this policy will be empowered. And another really important factors in terms of management is the preparation of the net working capital. During the lockdown, the pharmaceutical company had to prepare the working capital more than usual, because sometimes they cannot go to the bank in order to withdraw money or make an online so-called withdraw. So this is the key point, the key task that a pharmaceutical industry have to prepare for a pandemic period. To sum up, my presentation had 3 parts. In the first part, I had talked about the situation of the COVID-19 in Vietnam, and in the second part, I have given you some major indicators of the macroeconomic and pharmaceutical industry in Vietnam. And in the third part of my presentation, I had give you some key points of how a typical pharmaceutical company can do in order to overcome a global uncertain environment. And I hope that with the example, you can imagine how the pharmaceutical industry and company in Vietnam can work together in order to overcome all the difficulties. So thank you for your attention. That is the end of my presentation. Thank you for your attention.
Ja, vielen Dank, Hung, vielen Dank. Und Ihnen allen für Ihre Aufmerksamkeit. Wir haben ein Pharma-Update Vietnam herausgebracht, was Sie auch auf unserer Webseite abonnieren können. Ja, schauen Sie vorbei und schauen Sie natürlich auch später wieder in unsere Themen-Specials. Wiedersehen.